Hi folks, hope you're all well. So today what I want to do is take you through a hybrid picking exercise from a song called Ruckus Maximus by a guitar player called Lyle Workman. So as usual, I will break down the technique, I'll take you through the chords, I'll talk about where we can apply them elsewhere, and I'll also give you a little bit of background info on Lyle and show you what gear we're using today. So for those of you who perhaps haven't heard of Lyle, I really can't recommend enough that you go and check him out immediately. He's a fabulous musician and an absolutely terrifyingly good guitar player. Really one of the best in the world, which is strange because he seems relatively unknown within guitar circles. He's probably better known for his film and TV scoring work on movies like Superbad, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and TV shows like Love. But before he was doing that, he was working as a session guitar player for artists like Sting, Beck, Michael Bublé, and a bunch of others. And before that still, he was in a band in the mid-80s called Bourgeois Tag. He then went on to join a band called Jellyfish, who do this really cool Beatles meets Queen kind of vibe. And he was also playing for Frank Black from Pixies. He's released a handful of solo albums which are predominantly kind of instrumental and very, very eclectic. I wouldn't exactly put them within the sort of realm of the Steve Vai's and the Joe Satriani's. They're a little bit more diverse than that, but it's definitely very guitar-centric music, and there's just some incredible playing on it. Favourite tracks of his, and when I was learning it I realised that it's a really, really good workout for both your right and your left hands. So anyway, enough of me jazz handsing at you, let's get into it. Okay, so the technique itself is relatively simple. There's nothing unusual about it as far as hybrid picking goes. Where the challenge lies with it is the speed, the rhythmic kind of phrasing, and the various chord shapes that you're moving through. It really takes a good bit of stamina to get through it and keep it tight. And it's kind of a go-to thing that I'll revisit when I start noticing my right hand's getting a bit kind of rusty. So just to sort of explain the technique and what is happening from like a rhythmic perspective, we're just going to look at the first chord. Now it's worth noting that with this track we are in drop D standard, so just lowering our low E by a tone. If you want to do that now, and then we can move on. Okay, so our first chord shape, and actually all the chord shapes in this progression are based around what are called open voiced triads. This is something that I've mentioned before when I was talking about some Eric Johnson stuff a while ago. Essentially what it means is, usually when we build chords in thirds, we've talked a lot about Western music theory being a kind of tertiary system, building thirds on top of each other. It would give us the degrees in the major scale, 1, 3, and 5. Now, all that happens with open voiced triads is that we take the third, i.e. the note in the middle of the triad, and we move it up an octave. So what we get, rather than having something that's quite closed, we get something that sounds a lot airier and kind of a little bit brighter and prettier as well. And these voicings are used throughout this piece. So let's take our first one. It's D. So we have our index finger on the 5th fret of the A, which is the root. We have our ring finger on the 7th fret of the D string, which is the perfect 5th. And then we have our little finger on the 7th fret of the B string, which is the major 3rd. Now with the right hand, we are going to be using our pick for the lowest note in every chord, and then our middle finger and our ring finger respectively. Okay, the first thing that you want to focus on with this is trying to get the dynamics of each string roughly even. So we don't want to have a super loud picked note and then the other two start disappearing, which is easy to do because we have a sharper attack with the picked notes. We want to try and sort of balance them out. A good way to sort of check this can actually be to close your eyes as you're doing it. There, I could hear that the middle note is quieter than the others. That was better, a bit of an accent on the third one. That's pretty good. Okay, so just get comfortable with that for a minute in itself, trying to make sure that every note is roughly the same volume. Now, the next thing about this particular piece is that it is quite interesting from a sort of feel point of view. The song is in 4/4, which means we have 4 beats in every bar, and it is based around 16th notes. So what 16th notes are is when we take a beat and we divide it into 4 equal parts. Okay, so if this is our pulse, 16th notes would be 1 E under, 2 E under, 3 E under, 4 E under. Okay, 1 E under, 2 E under, 3 E under, 4 E under. So the part we're going to be playing is based around 16th notes and it's continuous, so we're playing continuous 16th notes. But what is unusual about it is that although rhythmically speaking we're playing 16ths, we are phrasing in groups of 3. So rather than going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we actually go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So to demonstrate this, usually we'll be going 1 E under, 2 E under, 3 E under, 4 E under, and instead we're going to be going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we get kind of like this, almost like, it's not exactly like a polyrhythm, but it's interesting because it means that the phrasing cycles over and around the beat in an unusual way. So the first thing I want you to do is just practice that. Set either a metronome or a click track, or just tap your foot. And just get comfortable with phrasing in groups of 3 rather than groups of 4. We want to make sure that every note is the same length and that this cycle is continuous. So what we don't want is, we want to keep every note the same length. Like so, which already I think is quite interesting. Now, the way that I'd recommend you build up speed with this is actually not necessarily to just do it by slowing the metronome down. You can do it that way, and if you're trying to get to grips with rhythmic subdivisions, then that might be the best thing to do. But the way that I would maybe do it is actually work your way through the subdivisions as a little challenge to yourself. So if this is our pulse, it might be that you start off playing quarter notes, and then you might double that up to 8th notes. And then you might move up to triplets, so we have 3 subdivisions per beat. And then eventually up to semiquavers or 16th notes. Okay, so it's a different way of doing it, but it will simultaneously strengthen your awareness of different subdivisions of the beat, which can only be a good thing. So there's probably 2 or 3 shapes which get recycled over and over again throughout this idea. The first shape is the one that we've already looked at, through perfect 5th, 3rd. The second is an inversion. So for example, we have index finger at the 4th fret of the A, little finger at the 7th fret of the D, and middle finger on the 5th fret of the B. Now with this shape, your root note is actually the one that resides on the D string where your little finger is. So in this case, this is actually an A chord. It's A over C sharp. And Lyle will often use this into that, and then even into our sort of third variant, which is the minor version of the first shape, whereas previously we had root, fifth, major third, starting half a step down we have root, fifth, minor third. Okay, so we get this kind of thing. And the nice thing about these voicings is that you can sort of move fairly freely between keys without it sounding too weird. Let me show you what I mean, just as an example. Okay, let's break down the actual progression now. So what I'm going to do is sort of, I guess if I were practicing this, I would probably do it in groups of 3 chords at a time. And for pretty much every chord, you're going to be playing 2 repetitions of that pattern. Okay, that would be 2 repeats. Okay, so we start with our D, and then we move to a B minor, which is index finger on the 2nd fret of the A, which is the root, ring finger on the 4th fret of the D, which is the perfect 5th, and middle finger on the 3rd fret of the B, which is the minor 3rd. So we get okay, our 3rd chord is the same as the 1st, but just 1 tone lower, starting on C. So we have D major, B minor, C major. Now, this is where things start to look a little bit weird, but the main reason why they look weird is because we're in drop D. So what you have to bear in mind is that really any note that we are playing on the low E string is going to look 2 frets higher than it normally would because we've dropped the string by a tone. So although this looks like, ooh, this is weird, B flat, E flat, C, it's not. It's actually A flat if we're in a standard tuned guitar. So our 4th shape is this A flat major, where we have middle finger on the 6th fret of the low E, ring finger on the 6th fret of the A, and an index finger on the 5th fret of the G. Okay, which is the same inversion as the 1st and the 3rd chord. We have 1, 5, 3. Okay, after the A flat, we have the emergence of one of the slash chords I talked about earlier. Remember that it looks a little bit different because of the drop tuning. So this one is going to be an E flat chord over G. So we have ring finger on the 5th fret of the low E, little finger on the 6th fret of the A, and index finger on the 3rd fret of the G. Okay, and then from here, all we do is drop the little finger by half step. So the first 3 chords, second lot of 3, okay, moving on, we are now starting to recycle shapes quite a lot. So our next shape we have is starting at the 3rd fret. So we have 3rd fret of the lowest string, 3rd fret of the A string, and 2nd fret of the G. And then we are going to move this down, which is basically an F major to an E minor. For the E minor, we just have, you can kind of visualize the open E minor shape. It's just that, again, we're compensating for the drop D. So we have 2nd fret of the lowest string, 2nd fret of the A, and then open G. And then we're going to drop this shape 1 step further, which makes it into E flat major. So far we have halfway there. Our next group of chords, we're starting out with essentially just a D minor triad. So this time we have the open low D, the open A, and then the minor 3rd on the 3rd fret of the D string. And then we have the recycling of another 2 voicings. We have ring finger on the 4th fret of the low string, little finger on the 5th fret of the A, and then index finger on the 2nd fret of the G. And then we just shift these up, the little finger stays where it is, ring finger and the index finger move up a fret, which gives us our G minor again. Start to see the re-emergence of the same shapes coming back around. And then our last 4 chords, we have a D flat major, the original shape, just down a half step from where we began. And this is the only time we see a variation on the pattern, where basically all he does is change the major 3rd to a sus2, which is caught by the bar of your index finger. Okay? Then we come back to our A flat major from earlier, which is the one at the 6th, 6th and 5th fret. And then lastly, we have our E flat over G again. Again, this kind of popped up as the 5th chord the first time round. So we have 5th, 6th and 3rd, always missing out the note that's on the D string. And then we finish with that G shape again, which is 5th, 5th and then 4th. So very, very slowly, the whole thing will be like this. So just to wrap up, gear wise, I was using this Reverend Charger HB into my Suhr Badger, which was set kind of just on the edge of breakup. That was going into a Suhr Reactive Load, which is like a more recent thing we've been using. And then the sort of overdriven guitars, the harmony part was done on that Strat and on this. That was going into the Kemper on a VH4 profile. All of the sort of processing side of things was done in the box. So there was just a Memory Man style delay, courtesy of a plugin called Echo Boy by Sound Toys, and some plate reverb by the same company, a plugin called Little Plate. And then on the double of the picked part, there was a bit of micro pitch shift, just so that we could get a bit of stereo spread either side of the main guitar. And that was pretty much it. I know this week has been a bit different, looking like a new player. I hope you've enjoyed it anyway. I think you'll get a lot out of the exercise if you spend a bit of time to go through it. And I highly suggest you go and check out Lyle Workman and his fabulous playing and music. Okay guys, that's it from me. Have a fabulous rest of your weekend and I will see you guys soon.